January 8th, 2017, another year, and we're exploring topically the various topics in the Course in Miracles. Today we're going to do Manifesting Miracle Mindedness. That is really going to be talking about practical principles of putting the Course to work in our lives, which is, it isn't easy, but it's something that will make you very happy. It's the happiest process of all because you're not doing it. By that I mean, if you really are following the inner guidance, it's a wonderful feeling to feel as though you're being guided through the choices that you make in your life, and you're not allowing your ego to be doing all that. I recognize we have some folks in the room today that are from, interesting, I just realized that we have from, I can hardly say it, Alaska to Key West, Florida.
Wow.
Right, and just in these four people right here. So Chris and Joan are from Anchorage, and you guys want to introduce yourself? You were here last year, I remember.
Guy Scalzi, actually from Maine.
Or Maine? I thought, weren't you from Key West?
No, John's Key West.
Oh, John's Key West. Okay, so one's Key West and one. I bet you can meet here, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good. All right.
We went to New Jersey.
Oh, okay. A couple of announcements about some events that are coming up. I'll put this, you can see this on my website. There's going to be an Easter conference based on the Course in Miracles in Utah, not too far from Salt Lake City, on Easter weekend, right? If that should interest you, there's flyers there. And then I'll let you know a year from now, in February of 2018, at the big conference in San Francisco. You can read about that on our website. The latest issue of Miracles Magazine is out. One of the ways that the folks who are watching us can really support us is by subscribing to Miracles Magazine. It's really the simplest way in the world to do that. We have a couple of poems in here that are like Al. I think the first poem here is by Al, and Lynn, who's often here, has a poem in here as well, right in the center. So shall we, do you have a poem in it too? No? Joey? You want to say something?
My poem is there too.
Pardon?
My essay is there too.
Oh, your essay? Yeah. Not a poem, there's a whole article by Yasko. Right. So check out Miracles Magazine. So let's get into it. There's really a lot. I think we'll make it through it, but the opening quote I had last time as well, because I really want to emphasize it. This is from Meister Eckhart, who I think you know by now. This was a really well-known medieval Christian mystic, probably the best of the best known of the medieval Christian mystics, who says, become in all things a God seeker and all things a God finder at all times and all places. And then the Course is asking that we do the same thing, that this become our focus. And if this is your focus, then you really will be happy, right? Because you'll be doing what you're supposed to be doing as opposed to what your ego is telling you think you would like to do. So the first step in doing A Course in Miracles, the Course itself says is undoing, purification, or purgation. Purgation is not a Course term. It is a term that St. Teresa of Avila used to describe the first step in spiritual development is awakening step. The second is purgation. Purgation means purifying. It means cleansing, cleaning. The Course in Miracles says miracles everyone's right, but purification is necessary first, which in good part just means that we kind of have to get out of the way. To a lot of cleaning of the house. We're going to cleaning of the, when I say house, I don't mean your physical house, the mind. At one point, Jesus in the gospel says a man's enemies are those of his own house. And when he says that, he doesn't mean brothers and sisters and parents. He means the house that is the head and all the arguing that we do with inside ourselves, right? So it's not about doing anything. It's really about undoing. Therefore, Meister Eckhart says, only the hand that erases can write the true thing, right? It's a matter of uncovering the truth. So this is the Center for Remembering and Sharing. So what we're remembering is the truth of who we really are without all of the junk that gets put in over the top of who we are. And that really includes everything about who we are in terms of our personality, where we live, what we do, all the stuff that we start thinking becomes a definition of who we are. Actually, the Course wants us to get us down to removing all of that so that you can really remember who you are as spirit. And the spirit doesn't have a form in that sense, right? I think it's fun, whenever you find a quote by two people as diverse as Meister Eckhart from 700 years ago and Osho. Shanti and I both spent time with Osho in India at different times. I was there in 71, and I think she was there around 1980. But we really liked his teaching. He was Rajneesh, as you know. There's a lot of similar stuff to what the Course in Miracles says. He says, erase the mind. And the way to erase it is not by fighting the way to erase. By fighting, the way to erase is just to become aware. Just becoming aware. Just becoming aware of how insane you are to start with. Okay? Just becoming aware of how much junk is cluttering the mind. And then we can begin to let this junk go. We're going to talk a little bit later about how we do that. Okay? So you're probably all familiar with Michelangelo's saying that every block of stone has a statue inside it. It is the task of the sculptor to discover it. And so I thought that was good because it's the same thing as the Course in Miracles. And everyone, there's a real spirit that's alive inside. So what we're doing is we're sort of removing all the stuff that has nothing to do with the presence of that spirit, right? We're taking all the concomitants and the accoutrements of personality and letting that go so that we can discover. Because we're so, if you started the workbook lesson, somebody of you start the workbook lesson over, I got 4, 5, 6, a bunch of you. All right, so if you did that, then I think, what was it, like yesterday's lessons was I see only the past, right? So if I see only the past really means that we're still caught up in our story, that we're caught up in our history. And we're so very, very identified with that. You know, the fact that the Course would say it's either the past or the future, you know, which keeps us, of course, from living in the present, because we're rehearsing the past, and the essential relationship we have with the past is one of guilt. So we beat ourselves over the head about all the things that we can feel guilty about, all the mistakes that we made, or somewhere along the way. And then the relationship with the future is one of fear and anxiety about what may be happening. What if I get old? What if I get sick? What if there's nobody to take care of me? What if? So we got, if only in the past, if only I'd made different decisions in the past, I'd have a different present. That's true. You would, but you didn't make different decisions in the past, so your past is your present. And now then the same thing with regard to the future. So the whole Course is just a matter of cleansing. It's a matter of dropping off. It's a matter of letting go of all of that extraneous stuff that's not who we are, which then enables us to find out who we really are. Michael?
Yeah, I thought
Wait, I'm sorry, Michael. I should have said this earlier. Brad's not here today. He's not well. He's got the bad case of the flu. We have to use the mics, and you got to talk right into the mic, because keep in mind this is on film.
Okay, so I thought it was the past was all about sin. The future is all about fear.
Right.
And in the present, we're guilty, really, about the past.
Right. That's right.
So that's when we're unaware. But when we are aware, then we're able to really let the past go, not project toward the future, and just be really in the present moment.
Right. So the guilt is about about the sin. Right. Okay. All right. So most of these are quotes from the Course, but I got some other things mixed in here as well. I have already told you that you can be as vigilant against the ego as for it. This lesson teaches not only that you can be, but that you must be. There are actually a couple of parables of Jesus. We got a buzz going here. There. Well, okay. Anyhow, let's stay with our topic. Let me read this over. I have already told you that you can be as vigilant against the ego as for it. There's a lot of call for vigilance in the Course. Watching. Oops, I hit the wrong button. I gotta be careful when I hit this thing. Okay. Must be. Another way we could talk about this is about raising our level of awareness. So we're very aware of what we're doing. We're very aware when we get caught up in making judgments. We're caught up in attack thoughts. You got to see, and you can't just sort of, that's why Gurdjieff and a lot of others in the Course in Miracles too says, a lot of people are just sleeping. We're walking around sleeping, not even aware of our level of insanity. So this is all about awakening, right? It's easier to resist at the beginning. This is Leonardo da Vinci, and I got Michelangelo and Leonardo in here both today, right? It's easier to resist at the beginning than at the end, right? The moment you see that you start to make a judgment, the moment you see that you're starting to go, that's the time to catch it. Or you could say, the moment the temptation is there to engage, take another bite, ask for another helping, whatever it is, The moment you see it, that's the time to catch it. So how do we engage in the purification process? So the Course says your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within you that you have built against it. It's never about doing anything in the world. It's never about doing anything externally speaking. It's always about looking inside. We're always working on cleaning house. It's not necessary you seek for what is true, but it is necessary to seek for what is false. So we're cleaning up the false. When we clean up the false, the truth just automatically comes to the fore. The truth has always been there. So we don't have to find out what's true. The true becomes, it's like removing. It's like Michelangelo saying, what we do is we take away of all the external stuff that's not true, that's not part of the reality of who we are, and then you're left with the truth. How simple is that, right? So that's why how simple is that? Give up what you do not want and keep what you do. How simple is the obvious? This is very obvious, right? Okay, going on. So changing our mind. So this is a course in mind training. And it's a real training. I'm glad to see that several of you said that you started the workbook lesson over again, because you can do this over and over and over again. And as you know, every time you do it, you're going to go a little bit deeper, and you're going to see a little bit more. You'll repeatedly be having these aha experiences. That's why this is a study. You have seen the extent of your lack of mental discipline. Now, there's a lot, you're going to find a lot of these quotes today are about discipline. At one point, the Course says, you are very undisciplined. You passively condone your mind's miscreations. Passively condone our miscreations. So it's all about awareness. Because if you're really aware, you're not going to condone your miscreations, right? It's necessary that you be aware of this, for it is indeed a hindrance to your advance. Right? In the past, another word that we've used a lot is look. Look. Look at what we tell a kid when you come to the crosswalk. You stop. The moment you see that the mind starts to go a little bit, stop. Look. And then listen. And the listening is to listening to inner guidance. Listen to what the Holy Spirit really has to say for you. And the really good news is that Holy Spirit thing always is there. And it always is available. And if you ask sincerely enough, you'll get an answer. You'll get an answer in any event, whether you recognize it or not. The thing is being able to recognize the answer and then follow what you probably heard me say that once upon a time Helen said to Jesus, this stuff isn't working, right? And Jesus said to Helen, well, why don't you do what I'm asking you to do so you can hear my voice even better? Right? So we begin the process. If you begin to listen to it, that's why it's a good idea to be doing the workbook lessons over again, because it does take you deeper into listening. Right? All right. So how do we see for what's false? This is me, not the Course in Miracles, in the first part there. So a number of the early lessons in the Course are designed to help us seek out the false in order to be free of it. Did you notice how much is the early lessons, even you're looking at the early, they're about thinking, right? Okay, so they're about watching your thoughts, seeing what it is that you're thinking. And by watching your thoughts, you can begin to be able to change things. But you can't change it if you're just wallowing in it. You need to get a little bit, a higher perspective. You're standing outside of the battlefield where you look down and see what's going on. Okay? We are not looking for what's false in others. That's a very important point. Sometimes you think, well, I'm looking for what's false, but no, it's not in the world. The world is full of false stuff. We're just looking for what is inside me that's caught in misperception. For example, lesson 21 is I am determined. Now we talk about discipline, and now we're talking about determination and vigilance. There are going to be a lot of these kind of emphases today. I am determined to see things differently. And it includes the following exercise, which is, lead us not into temptation means recognize your error and choose to abandon them by following my guidance. Now, most people don't want to look at their error, so most of the time what we want to do is just bury it. We want not to look. So this is requiring a lot of courage in order to begin to look. All right? And a little bit further. So as you search your mind for all the forms in which attack thoughts present themselves, hold each one in mind while you tell yourself, so let's do this. Let's actually do this exercise right now. And we'll take a few seconds to do each one. Number one, I am determined to see, and then think of a person there. So I'm going to stop for 30 seconds. All right, close your eyes. Well, the folks that are watching on YouTube can do the same thing. And think about, I am determined to see, put the name of somebody in there that you're really having trouble with. And really be aware of who they are and what this is about. You really want to see this different. You want to see it differently. You're determined to see it differently. Okay, now let's take a situation. I am determined to see, and then think of a situation that bothers you. Something you want to see differently. Another way we could say this, you've got to wanna, right? You got to want to do it. If you want to do it, you can do it, but you got to put some effort into trying it. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. So the holy instant, of course, is a result of your determination to be holy. What this is all about, what the Course is about, for every human being, I don't care who you are, what you do in the world, it's all about God realization. This is your destiny. This is where you're going. You're going home. All the way home. Actually, I was talking to Shanti on the phone yesterday, and we started joking, and I said, are you going to go home? And she said, which home? In a way, she wants to go home, not back to the apartment, right? But the real home, the Course says, the place where you are truly welcome. Not only are you truly welcome, you actually never left home. Which is why what's happening is that we're caught in a dream. We're dreaming that we left home. And we're looking for how to get, think about your nighttime dreams. How many of your nighttime dreams aren't about trying to get somewhere? Right? Somewhere where it's going to be comfortable and right. Someplace where you're going to be home. I had a dream this morning. I don't remember it very well, but I remember it was something about I had to find home for places for people in New York City. People that were coming to New York City. To find place, I don't know what that was all about, but it was about finding homes or finding abodes of sort of, right? Right? So the holiness is your determination to be holy. It is the answer, the desire, and the willingness to let it come precedes its coming. Again, you gotta wanna. You prepare your mind for it only to the extent of recognizing you want it above all else. Now that's a very important point, the above all else. There's a chapter in the book that I wrote on Living A Course in Miracles that's titled Above All Else. And it's called Above All Else, I Want to See Differently. You gotta really want to see it. And then you can see it. That's what's the really remarkable part of this. You can't be pretending that you're not going to be able to see what you want to see or to achieve what you want to achieve. I think one of the problems we have with this is you say, well, I'm not an enlightened being. And the goal of becoming an enlightened being, well, this is really about becoming an enlightened being. If you're going all the way home, you're completely completing the atonement. And as you know, as I've said in the past, I think Ken completed the atonement. I think Bill completed the atonement. It's possible to complete the atonement. It's possible to give the mind completely back to the mind, to get home with God. That's the only place that you're really comfortable. Because everything else is going to be a sense of separation, a sense of division, a sense of brokenness, a sense that there's something missing until there's nothing missing, right? Till you're truly home, you're truly comfortable, you're all the way there. That's the goal. It looks like an incredible goal. I mean, it looks like such a big goal. But if eventually that's where you're going to go, then you might as well be moving in that direction, right? Got the mic?
It's on.
I sure,
Good.
It's on.
I sure do.
You sure do.
So can you achieve this while you're still in a body?
Okay, so the question is, can you achieve it while you're still in the body? Answer is yes. However. The however is the Course in Miracles says that it's rare.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
That's all.
It's possible. But, I think the idea is to be working on it, to be moving in that direction, whether you're in a body or not in a body, because eventually that's where we want to go all the way home, right? So, but keep in mind that it's something that happens in the mind. It's not something that happens in the body. And you've got a mind whether you got a body or not. Because at some point the body is obviously going to disappear, because in case you hadn't noticed, they all do, right? So the body will disappear. So sometimes I think in the past people have got this mistake that what's going to happen when you die is you're going to be enlightened, you're going to go to heaven. And I've heard Ken be asked about that. He said, no, that's not, don't think you're going straight to heaven just because you die. There is a really important thing that's going to happen when you die. You're going to realize you're not a body. And that's kind of crucial, because you'll know that not only you're not a body, you're not all the concomitants that went along with the body in terms of time and space in particular, and personality and all that. What should happen at that point is you recognize the dream, that this was a dream. Now the question is, do you want to hold on to the dream? Or will you be willing to let go of that dream, which we understand is an illusion, right? No matter, we may have, you think about tyrants try to conquer the whole world and make it theirs. So all the Alexander the Greats and the Genghis Khans and the Napoleons and the Hitlers, they try to get the whole darn thing and then they die. And what do you got? You got nothing. You were going in the wrong direction all along, and you would maybe kill several million people in the process, right? That is real insanity, which is why this is an insane world, right? So we're looking for the insanity not in the world. We're looking for the insanity inside me, inside you, right? Till we get it right. But you got to want it above all else. This is you got to want to do this, right? You got to have. Let's put a mic over on this other side of the room. Let me take this one, and you can have that one over there. Okay, James. Pass it back. You can stand up and so that.
I lost my thought. No.
You lost your thought? Where'd you lose it?
I'm losing a lot of thoughts. What I want to preference is we keep approaching this we still have our ego verbs, like achieve. Just an achieve, like we're struggling to get something.
Right.
We want to get something. And it's like, it's there. What we got to do is erase it. Even me, you think I'm hoping, everybody hopes we're going to be enlightened. We hope we are enlightened. We got to start erasing and getting out of its way. And we keep going through these cycles, and we keep getting tricked by our own cycles, and we keep applying ego metrics
That's a
to
good
something
word.
that doesn't exist. All right, because that's what we're used to. So even the fact that we're applying these thoughts, we're missing it. Because loaded in these words is we're going for this, and it's still the ego, we're struggling, and there's embedded sacrifice in there. There's all these misnomers that have nothing to do with the Course.
That's right.
We should really maybe try to relax to the fact that we are enlightened. We can run, but we can't hide. We're in a state, like the Course says, this is already over. It's all wrapped up and gone. We're in a perpetual state of nothingness, of confusion, and we can run, but we can't hide. So we can maybe relax enough to erase, do the erasing, which is more like an Eastern philosophy. I think they're attacked because they have more non-ego Western arete that we have. It's tricky for us because I'm a red-blooded American kid. I played basketball. I did everything. I got all that. And I go out. I do the Course. I do this. I walk out. A taxi goes by me. And I'm right in it. What's going on here? You know what I mean? It's out the window in split seconds.
Right.
And it takes really incredible amount of mindfulness to get out of that. And, just simple things is we could the stillness, Christ is still, and just slowing things down. When you feel your stuff going, I go to work every day like everybody else, and the steam starts picking up. I start thinking about work, and we have to get up with it in the morning, in the first instant of instance, and say, "That's not real. That's not real." Okay, and start pushing it aside. So,
Right. Thanks.
thank you.
Yeah, you're 100% right. So the task really is one of erasing. It's really one of removing, because of course, as Jim just said, you're already there. The story is over. It's complete. That's what makes it a dream. What makes it a dream is that the story is already over. Right? So we're all kind of living sort of in a backflash, as though we're seeing something that's not there, which was what we created, what we put on top of what is there. What is there is spirit. What is there is love. What is there is the truth. So we're just removing. My friend Zhao Wang, who you're going to read about, who read the article in the most recent issue of Miracles magazine, one of the sentences that she used that I thought was a lot of really great little sentence was, concepts of the ego's close. Just about 5 words, right? Concepts of the ego's close. So we can get very caught in concepts, like you're a Republican, or you're a Democrat, or you're a Christian, or you're a Jew, or you're whatever you are, right? And none of that is true. So, I mean, that's what we're erasing. We're erasing all the stuff. The word for disciple in Hindustani is means color. Sannyasa means colorless. So that there's no color. It doesn't have a form in that sense, right? Spirit doesn't have a form, and that's something that's very difficult for it to grasp. But if you think about the fact that love doesn't have a form, it's an experience, but it doesn't have a form, right? The mind doesn't have a form. We may think about the brain, but the brain is just a machine. So what's real, which is spirit, which is love, which is mind, which is the truth, right? It has none of these definitions. What we're erasing is we're erasing all of the definitions of who that we think they are. The benefit of this is that it gives you freedom. There's tremendous, because then you're not tied down to a definition. Some of you I know read the Don Juan Carlos Castaneda series stuff back in the 70s and the 80s and into the early 90s, right? Well, he talks in there, Don Juan talks about being anonymous. And that there's a certain kind of freedom in it being anonymous. Because if you're anonymous, nobody can pin you down in your thoughts. You know, they can. You don't have the definition. There's tremendous freedom that's in there, right? Then you don't have to live up to somebody else's expectations because of your definition. Once you get a definition, then there's certain expectations that are made about, so you're a priest. We've got definitions about what a priest should be, right? Or a doctor. A monk, yes. He was studying to be a monk. Yeah, that's a definition too. Any definition. Yeah, when I first started in ministry back in the early 60s, I don't know why, but Methodist ministers wore clerical collars. And the minister of the church, the first church that I served full-time by myself, when I wasn't an assistant, in other words, was in Brooklyn, and the guy who was the minister there wore a clerical collar, and he gave me his clerical collar to wear, and so for the first couple of years or so I was doing this, I was wearing a clerical collar. But it was a really weird thing because, first of all, everybody stares at your neck, right? Not only that, but when I would get onto the subway, the people would just sort of back up. You know, let the young priest in. That's like, but I realized it was just a game. It was just a costume, right? It was a concepts of the ego's clothes, right? So here were these clothes that provided definition of who this person was, and then it was much more fun to be just a person, you know, anonymous, right? Where normal kin, one of the major emphasis of kins was just be normal. Or another word that we could use besides normal would be natural. Just be natural. There was nothing extra fancy about kin. It was just a regular human being in absolutely every sense of the term, right? Yeah. All right, so let's go on. So lesson 20, I'm determined to see. This is our first attempt to introduce structure. Now, if you're doing the workbook lessons and you started in the beginning of the year, right? So up until this point, there's really been no structure has been introduced into how to do the lessons, right? You're given the idea, you're told to practice this idea, but now we're starting to get a little bit more structure here. This is our first attempt to introduce structure. Do not misconstrue it as an effort to exert force or pressure. This is one that's so important about the Course. The Course, it's never, there's no demand, there's no command. what's the very first line of the course? This is a required course, but the time you take it in is voluntary. So it's voluntary. You do it, there's no coercion. There's no pushing. You have to be the decider. And you will be the decider, especially if you decide you don't like whatever it is that you've been getting. Okay? You want salvation, you want to be happy, you want peace, you do not have them now because your mind is totally undisciplined. Here we are back to discipline again, right? So we're introducing structure so that we get some discipline that's going along with it. And you cannot distinguish between joy and sorrow, pleasure and pain, love and fear. You are now learning how to tell them apart. And great indeed will be your reward. And we'll go on. So this is, do you all know the Sufi mystic Al-Ghali? He's really regarded as one of the most famous of the Persian mystics. Okay? It says, as polishing iron can turn into a mirror, so can a mind conditioned by discipline eliminate its mental rust. Okay? So I'm expecting, so you leave here today, you're going to be thinking about discipline. Life's lesson. There is no need to learn through pain, and gentle lessons are acquired joyfully, remembered gladly. What gives you happiness, you want to learn. That's the good part of it. The really exciting part about it. I'm thinking about someday, maybe after the book I'm working on now is done, or at least writing an article or doing a book on listening to inner guidance. But it's more than listening to inner guidance, it's following inner guidance. Because as you begin to follow, if you begin to do what Jesus is asking you to do, you begin to lead a guided life, you will know that you're leading a guided life. And that will feel really good. The reason it feels really good is because you know you're making the right decisions. You're literally doing what Jesus is asking you to do, but not in a coercive way. You have to be the one who elects. We have freedom. We have freedom of thought here. The freedom of will. You are the chooser. Right? All right. What gives you happiness, you want to learn, not forget. So this actually makes you happy. It feels good. One of the ways to notice that something needs to be done is you don't feel right. Things just, so the Course is asking you to search your mind. I checked yesterday, the use of the phrase, search your mind 9 times. So to just check it out. 9 times is to search your mind. Looking again, right? See where it is that you're not feeling good, because you can change that. Okay? In other words, you got to wanna, which I've said already a couple of times, right? You cannot be totally committed sometimes. Isn't that a great line? That's what the ego tries to do. The ego said, well, I'll give a little bit of time. I'll give some attention to this. And of course, no, you can't give a little bit of time. You can't give some attention to this. You've got to do this wholeheartedly and all the way. And then, of course, I hear the voice that God has given me, and only this my mind obeys. That's the discipline. Only this my mind obeys.
I have a question.
Okay, well, you got to have the mic. And it's behind you. There it goes.
I well recognize, could you go back to that?
Oh, back to the slide?
Yeah. I well recognize that the essence of the Course is to hear the Holy Spirit. And maybe this is the class that teaches us to hear the Holy Spirit, but it's a little tricky to always hear the Holy Spirit, even if we want to always hear the Holy Spirit.
Right. So it's a little tricky, but the thing is that the more we practice this, the more we get used to it, the more we can do it. Right? So it's like practicing anything else. It's like learning how to play. And I've sometimes said that learning the course is like learning how to play a musical instrument, or it's like learning a foreign language. It's a little bit of a different, and it does require a lot of work. But the more that you, let's say, learning a foreign language, let's say that. So the more you can practice speaking this other language, the more it begins to become natural. Actually, it becomes natural up to the point where you are. Did anybody here? Well, besides Yasko, I'm sure Yasko can. You think in Japanese. You think in English. The question is, do you think in Japanese or do you think in English? You say, okay, exactly. So, she's capable of thinking in either, right? So what the Course is asking us to do is to think in alignment with the Holy Spirit, right? Or think in alignment with the guidance of God and give up this other language that you've learned. You learned ego talk. You learned ego thought, right? Now we're trying to learn Holy Spirit think, if you will. And it's a different language. And therefore, what we're really saying here today is that the way to do this is to go into an immersion program. I mean, literally to immerse yourself in this other kind of thinking until you get to the point where it's natural. It says that so many times. Lesson number 4 or 5, I don't know which one it is. Miracles are natural. When they don't occur, something has gone wrong. And the thing that's gone wrong is that you're thinking unnaturally. If you have hurtful thoughts, if you have angry thoughts, if you have attack thoughts, if you have projective thought, that's all ego thinking. Now, anybody can tell you when you're having, if you just pay attention, you'll notice that you're thinking this way. And then what you need to do is to say, Holy Spirit, help me to see this differently. There's another way to think about this. So we're literally switching the mind around to the point where you can get like Yasko, and you're aware of the ego thinking, but you're now thinking with this new language, which is of the Holy Spirit. Yes, I'm going to pass the mic back to James.
I'm not like chapters and verse guy, but part 4, I don't know, do we have a chapter 40?
No.
No, we don't. So it's
31.
like chapter 30.
31.
The last section, okay? The Course does supply a structure.
Yes.
And it says
absolutely.
if you don't feel good, it's because you put a condition on the question that you gave the Holy Spirit and you don't want to accept the outcome. So the first thing is that you have to realize that you are projecting an outcome and you're interfering with the Holy Spirit, okay? And the Holy Spirit says after that, if you feel that you're uncomfortable and you're angry and you're unhappy, you say, let me ask the question again. And then it goes to say, at least say to the Holy Spirit, I don't like the way I feel right now. So there are like steps of fundamentals that if you have the proudness of mind to continue. But usually when we get unhappy, which is a perpetual state we're kind of surreptitiously going through, is because we put a condition on the question we gave the Holy Spirit. That's when you're practicing the Course.
Right.
And then you have to see that you didn't get your outcome. And then the last leg of it is to at least say, I don't like the way I feel right now.
Right.
I don't like these thoughts. I don't like where I'm at. And you're beckoning the Holy Spirit once again, start the process again for another outcome.
Right.
To release the outcome.
Yeah, very often what we do is we tell the Holy Spirit, this is what we want the outcome to be. Right, and then we're disappointed because that's not the outcome we want. And in which case, you're not following inner guidance. You're still following some sort of ego's guidance instead of what you really want, right? Okay. All right, so I think we did this. Let's go on. Yeah? Oops. I don't know why I'm not going. Oh, that's right. There's a little button on the side of this thing, don't it? I've done this before. Well, today I'm not doing it. It might. Oh, there we go. Just pressing harder. Okay. All good teachers realize, and this is what you're talking about, that only fundamental change will last. So, one of the things that may happen is with any kind of sport that you're learning or game that you're learning or anything, you begin to get little pieces of it without having the whole thing right away, right? But it's good that you're getting little pieces, just like, again, if you're learning a foreign language. One of the things, you're going to learn phrases, you're going to be very easy to say, how are you, and good morning, and good afternoon, and goodbye, and things like that. That will be easy to do, but we want to keep carrying this down till you become fluent through the whole process. So, but only fundamental change will last, but they do not begin at that level. We begin at the level, a very simple level. We're just, to continue with the language analogy, we're just learning phrases to start with. Okay. Strengthening motivation for change is their first and foremost goal. It is also their last and final one. Now, you remember last month, when we talked about mysticism, and I pointed out to you that according to this study that's been made by more than one person, but by this guy's name, Sir Alistair Hardy, that more people wake up as a result of crashing and burning experiences than in any other way. The Course in Miracles says you don't have to learn that way. You could just learn. You could just get it. But seeing how we're so deeply asleep, it's almost as though if somebody's really in a deep, deep sleep, just nudging them doesn't wake them up. Right? It's almost like you have to get a little bit of a shaken a little bit in order to wake up, right? If somebody's in a deep sorrow. Unfortunately, sometimes we have to be shaken awake. But that's one way of being waken up. Because then you realize I really don't like the results I've been getting. This bankruptcy has proven to me that I am actually not a very good money manager. So now I better get my act in and start learning how to manage money better. Or this divorce has showed me that I need to be better, more sympathetic and understanding about how to handle a committed relationship. All right? You could use lots of analogies but I'm using bankruptcy and divorce as examples of crash and burn experiences, which nobody wants to go through, but they're incredible lessons that can be learned through that process. Or it could be a health issue. And well, now I've got to start taking better care of my health. Because I've been negligent, I've been allowing, eating the wrong, or too much, or whatever it is. So we change it. But so there has to be the motivation to change. Again, you gotta wanna. Once you wanna, then you'll do it. But what you want to do it just because you want. There's a thing in the Course, I've talked about it once before, many months ago, about the attraction of guilt and the attraction of God. It's a very interesting, two different, I wrote an article about it that was in Miracles magazine, right? There's like these two pulls, and both of them, the ego, the attraction of guilt, it's like this thing that pulls us. It's, oh, go ahead, have another piece, tell a lie, what the heck, who's gonna know? That's the sort of seduction on the one hand but there's this other thing, which is really what you're here for. This other attraction, which is the attraction of God, is makes you pursue. That's why we go into monasteries, we go into deeper into studies, we practice Zen, we practice the Course in Miracles. But what we're learning today, this is what the whole day is about today, is you got to really do it. We can't just play around with the surface. Every once in a while, I'll meet somebody and you'll mention A Course in Miracles, and say, oh, I did that. Oh, really? So now you're an enlightened being. Of course, you would never say that. But, there's like an implication that this is something that you could, this is done when you're all the way home. And you know that you're all the way home. And that you're finished and that you are back with God again. And that's why it's a lifetime process. But it should be a life, and I know a lot of you in the room, David here, for example, because I've known David for years, you should be noticing that there are changes, that you don't see things the way you used to see things. You're much less likely to anger, for example. You're much more patient, for example, right? You're much less you just don't get upset about stuff. You learn how to let things be what they are. Okay, where's the mic? On this side. Okay, Billy?
Yeah, I have to say that your course has really made my life a lot better. There's so many situations I've been in, like, anger and like my son screaming at me and used to say, what do? You just listen. There's so many things that I sit back and I don't act right away. Sometimes when I am acting, it's like somebody saying, whoa, come back. And the Course in Miracles, since my father died, I wanted to know where he went. And the path was led here. It's home,
That's
right?
great.
Yeah, so it definitely helped me.
Well, I didn't do it, Billy. You did it. And one of the ways you did it was by being here all the time. and by being consistent in study and working on it. That's the whole process. You got to be consistent. You got to stay with it all the time. I don't mean to make it hard sounding. It's really not hard sounding, but you can't just walk away from it after a while. You're not proficient just because you've had level 1 in Spanish. You're not proficient in Spanish, right? You got to get up to the advanced level to be able to, and the Course does talk about what it calls advanced teachers of God, right? That's where you begin to perfect the process. It doesn't mean that you're perfected. It doesn't mean you're all the way home, but it does mean that you're engaged, and in the process, that you are working on it, and you know that you're working on it. So strengthening motivation for change is the first and foremost, but it's also the last and the final one. Because if you've got the motivation, you'll do it. Remember again, maybe I think I'll tell this in the next slide here. Okay, John. Okay, there we go. Increasing motivation for change in the learner is all the teacher needs to guarantee change. Change in motivation is a change of mind. And this will inevitably produce fundamental change because the mind is fundamental. I think we talked about that a lot. Let's go on. So here's where the Course gets really simple. We cannot and will not change our minds until we realize that A, there's a need for a change. B, the mind can be changed. And 3, there is a better way to see. So the next part I think I talk about, this is the beginning of the Course, so you don't need to read that. So everybody knows, and at least everybody in this room knows, that the way the Course in Miracles got started was when Bill Thetford turned to his assistant, Helen Schuckman, and said the famous line, there must be a better way. That line also appears in the Course, right? But that's the crash and burn experience again. That's getting to the point of absolute frustration and realizing that the old way hasn't worked and there must be a better way to do things, right? It's sort of interesting. Here they were psychologists at Columbia. Their job is to try to help people have better mental health, right? But they were suffering from not very good mental health themselves. And it wasn't just Bill and Helen. It was the whole darn department that was caught up in backbiting and fighting and games and one-upmanship and ego stuff and who could write the most learned papers and who knew better than somebody else did. And we still play that. I mean, society plays like politics, my goodness. you know, it's an incredible battle all the time about who's got the better way and who's thinking better and who's smarter and who really understands, right? It's not a fun game. No. And you don't want to be part of it. Get the mic.
It's interesting to know because we all struggle where we are in our achievement and enlightenment. But Bill Thetford and Helen's had a torturous relationship their entire life.
Yes.
And then Ken had to come in and mediate in between it, got caught in the middle of it. And here's the people who are channeling the message, but they're still going through their house cleaning all the way up to his death. Bill was healed at the end. I believe he was healed at the end.
Right.
And he got the message, but he was, with all his relationships, was struggling to get to that point where they were all healed and released. And even with Helen going over, they had such a karmatic connection. And it was, people know Bill was gay, and Helen had a penchant for him that would play out. And it was very, very dramatic in human psychology that they had to work with. And, it took a long time. A long time. And here's the people who received the course verbatim, had the experience of the course, and still had to go through their trials and tribulations.
But the good thing is, they hung in there.
Yeah. And they,
and they never gave up. And they did work it out in the end. I mean, Bill at least was at peace with this, but in the very end.
I'm just saying this to punctuate the fact that we think it's like this enlightened path. I'm Catholic, so I have all the idolatry, all the images of how things should be and where it all could be. It's all loaded up. We think we're going to, have this mystical experience. But Bill's experience was very layman. He worked and worked and worked about forgiveness his whole life.
He did.
And he achieved it. And it's a beautiful tale.
Right. Okay, I just noticed that time-wise, we've been at this for over an hour, so let's take a break.